Nintendo just had their first Direct of the year, given it was a partner showcase, so focused more on third-party support and what's all coming to the Switch from their partners. But overall, I honestly think it was a solid show. Not one of the strongest directs there's been, but not one of the weakest either. It didn't really have what I would consider to be a big mic drop moment for anyone or any kind of large announcement that I think has a wide audience appeal, but it was jam-packed with a ton of very different kind of games that I think appeal to various different audiences. And while I do want to go over real quick what was in that direct and some stuff that really stood out to me, something else I want to talk about today is just what this kind of highlights for Nintendo's 2024 plans, because this is meant to cover the first half of this year. We have some very vague ideas of what's going on in the back half, and based on some other rumors that have been going around, while there are definitely some good games to look forward to, it does sound like very much this is going to be a slower year for the Switch. First off, announcements from the Direct. I think the first thing to get out of the way right away is that the previous rumors of some Xbox exclusives opening up to multi-platform did make an appearance at the Nintendo Direct with 2 games to reveal, those being Grounded and Pentiment. Now, I think a lot of people were actually fixated on hoping to see Hi-Fi Rush announced for the Switch. This was one of the first games that was being rumored heavily as potentially going multi-platform, and Switch was a heavy emphasis for that, and that was not announced. Based on some previous rumors and just kind of general talk circulating about the game, it sounds as if this was something that Xbox potentially did want to bring to the Switch, but just couldn't necessarily figure out the right way to port it effectively to the system. I do think it's very likely this game is going to find its way to Nintendo platforms eventually. The current iteration of the Switch is just not how that's going to happen. But in the meantime, Grounded and Pentiment are both coming to the system, which in particular, I would love to shout out Pentiment because it is a very specific kind of game for a very specific kind of person, and I am one of them. It is a wonderful game. It is one of the funniest games I've ever played. Not nearly enough people have given it a shot, and if you didn't have the option to play it before because you don't play on PC and you don't have an Xbox, well, the Switch is a great excuse to pick it up and play it. It's coming out tomorrow. Now, aside from the Xbox games, I would say that for me personally, the biggest reveals were definitely what Atlas had going on. In particular, they announced a demo for Unicorn Overlord. I have taken a few opportunities to talk about why I am so very excited for this game, because I'm a huge fan of Vanillaware's past games. They are just a company that in my mind really cannot mess up, even as they experiment with a very wide variety of different genres. So I'm definitely planning on hopping on that demo immediately once I'm done putting up this video. And I think I might actually put some time into it today and try to knock out some quick thoughts on that on the side channel, Next Side Quest. So keep your eyes open and subscribe there if you haven't yet, if you want to see my thoughts on that demo. Aside from that, Atlas also revealed Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance, which in typical Atlas fashion looks to be a re-release of the game featuring more additional content. I think the most exciting part about this, though, is not what was announced at the Direct itself, which is the fact that not only is this re-release coming out and is already dated for June, but it is not going to be exclusive to the Switch like the original version of the game is. It is going full multi-platform on basically everything, with PlayStation, Xbox, and PC versions available as well. Aside from those, again, this was a jam-packed Direct. There were a lot of games announced in the very short time frame that they had. A couple of the games I want to shout out real quick that looked interesting to me personally. Penny's Big Breakaway, which has a lot of retro 3D platformer energy behind it that I'm excited for. While on the 2D platformer front, there's Pepper Grinder, which looks really interesting. Another Crab's Treasure, which is a very tongue-in-cheek looking Soul-style game that we've known about for some time, but it's been delayed a couple times. There's been updates over a while. Finally got a confirmed release date where it is coming out in April of this year. And I think one of the big surprise ports that a lot of people didn't see coming, even though this is a franchise that's been getting a lot of ports of its older games lately, Star Wars is getting a Battlefront collection. So if you love the older Battlefront games, they are coming back with online multiplayer support. Oh, speaking of which, another remaster I completely didn't see coming out of anywhere. We are getting a re-release of Disney's Epic Mickey called Disney's Epic Mickey Rebrushed. One other thing I just want to say about this Nintendo Direct and just Nintendo news in general that does feel a little bit like a sock in the gut. We did get some Nintendo Switch Online news, which included various games made by Rare back in the day coming out on Nintendo Switch Online, 4 games coming to the regular service, 1 game that is limited to the expansion pack. The reason why this is a little bit of sock in the gut is that these games being added is really cool. I'm personally excited for some Battletoads, but at the same time, in Japan, they got the announcement that Mother 3 is being added to Nintendo Switch Online, which, look, it's almost a meme at this point, the fact that game's just not coming to the West. I would love to see some official support for that one, just getting an actual official translation that is released for people to pick up and play. But this is just a further reminder that this is apparently just not a priority for Nintendo. So overall, solid direct that's giving us a look at what's going on with the Switch the first half of this year. Obviously, those aren't the only games coming to the system. There's other stuff that we've already known about for some time that's releasing, and I think most importantly, we do have a major first-party release coming out very soon with Princess Peach Showtime on March 22nd. And looking past that to the back half of 24 is where things get really interesting for the Switch right now. In case you missed it, a very large rumor that has been circulating actively and has been corroborated by a lot of sources that I would normally trust a lot more, point to the fact that, while Nintendo has still yet to officially confirm anything about new hardware, it sounds as though the originally planned release date of their next hardware is not happening this year in the holiday season, but it's instead being pushed back to the first quarter of 25 for a couple reasons. First off, that updated release date does line up with the original Switch, which did come out in March instead of the holiday season. And also the theory is that Nintendo wants to spend more time finishing up the first-party content that is planned to release for that new hardware. Now, generally speaking, while I would love to have their next hardware as soon as possible, especially because that's kind of the stuff I talk about on this channel, and the sooner that comes out, the sooner I have a lot of new things to talk about and be excited for. But I completely understand the idea of wanting to have a launch library ready to support the system, which I think is a very important thing, and so that's probably the right move. What it means, though, is that the upcoming year ahead for the Nintendo Switch is going to be on the lighter side. I'm not going to say that it's going to be like a terrible year for Switch or it's the worst one ever, though it might actually technically be. I think there's a lot of great games to look forward to and be excited for, but it's not going to be quite as packed as some of the other years. Now, there are some games that we know are coming up that just haven't had fully locked in release dates just yet, but are planned for this year. We are getting a re-release and updated version of Luigi's Mansion 2 that was originally a 3DS game that is now going to be releasing on the Switch sometime later this year. There is the remake for 1000 Year Door. Really, the only game that we know about that is a ton of question marks, and I know is driving a couple of people mad, is what exactly is going on with Metroid Prime 4. That was something that was announced way back when the Switch was first releasing, and obviously we've heard stories about how it restarted development, it changed studios. A lot of stuff is happening behind the scenes on that game, and we just don't know what's happening with it at this rate. The proper assumption would be that it is still planned for the current model Switch, though I have seen a couple people theorize whether or not it's going to be turned into a Switch successor title as a result of how long it's already been pushed back. Personally, I would rather just see it release sooner if it is ready for the current hardware. That could be a surprise they have for the back half of 24, or maybe that is something that we're just not going to see until 25 or alongside Nintendo's next hardware. Back half of this year, I do think is a possibility in the lightest sense, especially because, again, this partner direct was very focused on not only non-first party titles, but was entirely about the first half of the year. So that does leave that kind of question mark of what could Nintendo have lined up to make the last half of this year really stand out. I think the big point is whether or not you put any stock in a lot of the previous rumors that have been circulating a ton, and whether or not you think it is going to be something that comes out early next year. Maybe there is a chance that it comes out in the back half of this year. It absolutely looks like we are entering that twilight era of the Nintendo Switch's life cycle where they're definitely prepping for what the next system is. We have some releases coming up. There are things to be excited about. There are games to look forward to, but the schedule is just definitely not as packed as it has been in some past years. And I think a lot of that is going to the fact that Nintendo is trying to prep that initial launch library to support whatever it is coming next. Whether that is the direct Switch successor we're all assuming it to be, or something else, because honestly, when it comes to Nintendo, I never know what they're fully thinking. And I mean that in a good way, most of the time. So there's just some quick thoughts on today's Nintendo Direct, as well as a look at what Nintendo's 2024 plans are in general. As always, if you enjoyed the video, hit the thumbs up button to let me know. Again, I am planning on doing some content very soon on the side channel, Next Side Quest, talking about some Unicorn Overlord stuff, so make sure to subscribe there as well if you want to see that content very soon. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I will see you all later.